Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning, Vinu. Thanks for joining.
Just checking. Hi, Charles. Just checking whether you can hear me or I can hear you.
Yes, yes, we can hear you. morning. Can you all hear me? Can, okay. Dr. Tan?
Yes, Dr.
Okay.
Lana.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Dr. Tan, I think you're muted. Dr. Tan, I think you're muted. You have to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Lana. So shall we start?
Sure.
Or should we wait for a minute or two more?
I think we can wait for another 2 minutes now because I think the students are still joining and participants are still joining us.
Okay.
Can wait for another 1, 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I think we will start. Yeah, everyone. Okay. So a very good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session entitled Global Virtual Classroom Experience with EngageVR, a panel discussion. So for everyone's information, this panel discussion is based on a collaborative project between the School of Education, Taylor's University, Malaysia, and the School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music, and Social Work, Central Escola University, Manila, the Philippines. So in this project, lecturers and students from both universities actually engaged in virtual role-playing micro-teaching activities in what we consider a global classroom environment using Engage VR. So this will be the central focus of our panel discussion today. So today we are here to talk about the experiences and perspectives in being involved in this project, and we are extremely pleased to have with us panelists and student speakers from both Taylor's University and Central Escola University. So please allow me to introduce our speakers today. Of course, they will introduce themselves in more detail later. So from Central Escola University, we have with us this morning Assistant Professor Richard Rillo. We have with us Ms. Elisa Ashley Zero. we have with us Miss Divina Catherine Godugo. So they are all from Central Escola University. Welcome. And from Taylor's University, we have with us Dr. Tivi Lojana Singham. She's actually the lead of this project. And we have Dr. Charles Sharma Naidu with us. We also have Mr. Faisal Atar bin Muhammad Fatsil with us. I said they will introduce themselves more after this. And we have students, Mr. Wan Tian and Miss Ishana Ravi. Right. So thank you again to all our speakers and students and all our audience today for being here with us. So I think we will get started with the very first session by our very own Dr. Tivi Lojana. She's a senior lecturer at the School of Education, Taylor's University. And as mentioned, she's the lead of this project. So she will be giving the opening remarks and also introduce us to the planning and execution in general of the entire project. Over to you, Dr. Lojana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan. A very good morning to all panelists and participants who have taken some time to join us today. The project, just briefly introduced, I'm a lecturer from School of Education, and sorry, I think the next slide, next slide. No, this is the first slide, okay, right. So the project actually started last year, and the project was actually started with collaboration with Vortex, and we have also started this project with the intention to actually provide pre-service teachers with a platform to train before they go to the real classroom in schools when they graduate, right? Or when they go for their practicum. So we found this as a platform to allow pre-service teachers to actually prepare, try out, experience, experiment, teaching practice in a virtual environment to allow them to get some feel of how it will be like if they go out to the real classroom, okay? So without further ado, I would also like to thank all the panelists from Central Escola University, our collaborator, Associate Prof. Richard Rilo, and his two students, Alicia and Divina, as well as at our end, Taylor's University, Dr. Charles, Dr. Tan, Mr. Faisal, and our two students, Dr. To Wan Tian, sorry, and also Ishana, right? Okay, I'll start my presentation. Next slide, please, Ili. Right, so this is how we look when we come in as avatars using EngageVR. So it allows us to give us an experiential training method that uses virtual reality to simulate real world scenarios. So in our context will be classroom related scenarios, but the focus of this project is to allow teachers to have exposure to classroom management skills. Okay, next slide. So this is the characteristics of a 21st century teacher. And this project, okay, 21st century teacher, which means teachers are more towards student-centered, collaboration is also in their mind, engaged learning, active learning, lifelong learning, and flipped classroom. Okay, next slide. Now, the virtual simulated classroom in this context, we've used EngageVR as the platform. And for this project, we've created role-playing activities for the pre-service teachers to practice classroom management skills. So if you look at some of the photos, and later there's a short video, the pre-service teachers and the students come in as avatars in this platform. Okay, next slide. So the idea behind this project is also based on two frameworks. The first one is TPAC framework. I'll just briefly explain the framework. So basically it gives a guide to teachers on how to integrate technology into the classroom with a purpose. So the issue here or the need here is to provide a training platform for pre-service teachers to practice classroom management skill in a safe environment, which is in a virtual environment, and to gain some experience about managing diverse learners before they go out to the real classroom scenario during their practicum or during their first year of teaching. Okay, so in TPAC, there are 3 areas: technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. So content knowledge, for this project, I've selected 2 modules. One, the first round, we did it with the reason development in ELT. The second round is another module, new pedagogies and digital tool. So the teacher should decide on what kind of content they would like to look at. And the pedagogical approach in this case, when we did it last year, it was more for remote teaching and learning purposes, right? Or it can be done in a hybrid environment, or it can be done physically in Vortex. Later, Dr. Charles and Mr. Faisal will explain later about EngageVR and the virtual opportunities that are available in EngageVR. So that's the technology part. So the pedagogical approach that we took last year was more for remote teaching and learning and hybrid options as well. Okay, thanks. So this is the 21st century learning skills. I won't go into too many frameworks. I won't go into too detail, but basically it covers the 4 21st century skills. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the 4 skills, 4 C's, it's called 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So the communication here is where students communicate with one another during the preparation of the projects. So communication has several levels in this context. So one, when students communicate in their group when preparing the role-playing task, and also the advanced level where we collaborated with Centro Escola University. So that's the advanced collaboration that we had actually planned and executed the second phase of the project. Critical thinking comes in when the scenarios that were created by the students about managing diverse learners, and creativity is how creative they have created and presented the role-playing task. Okay, next. So there are 2 phases, as I mentioned earlier. We tried out the first phase within our own context, which means with students from Taylor's University, right? And the familiarization session was conducted by Vortex, led by Dr. Charles and Mr. Faisal. They'll explain on the familiarization later on. Okay, so students were required to prepare students were required to prepare role-playing tasks, and they had to practice the role-playing task on EngageVR. Okay, next. So after the first phase, we decided to invite and collaborate with Centro Escola University. And during the first phase, when we had the presentation, we actually invited Associate Prof. Rilo to be our guest speaker. And he actually came and delivered a lecture, right? Then after that, we decided that, okay, we want this whole project to be more authentic, more real, right? Whereby the students and teachers don't know each other. And I approached Associate Prof. Rilo, and he said, yeah, we can work together. And he also brought in his students into this project. So the collaboration got to a second level, a more advanced level, where our students were the teacher at one round, and the students came from Centro Escola, and vice versa. When there were other rounds where Centro Escola students were the pre-service, were the teachers in the role-playing task, and our students played the role as the students. So this was more authentic because both sides didn't know each other. Unlike in phase 1, the students knew the teacher and vice versa. Right. Thanks. Next slide. So these are some of the scenes of role-playing tasks in the classroom. Next. Right. The issue about this project is teachers need guidance about how to integrate technology into the classroom. So, but one of it is to understand the TPAC framework and use the TPAC framework as a guide to actually integrate technology into the classroom with a purpose. Okay, next slide. So this is another photo of how the role-playing task and how the students and look when they go in or when they join EngageVR as avatars. Next slide. Okay, so some of the positive citations about using EngageVR is to promote learning, ultimately overcoming challenges related to classroom management skills. Okay, next slide. So some of the positive impact, right, towards learning is that it allows students or prospective teachers to practice classroom management skill in a safe environment. and also allows them to make mistakes because it's like a training and trial error. So they can make any mistakes, and it's a risk-free environment because it's just, we are all coming in to explore, experience, and experiment this whole project and as avatars. So it's a platform to learn, experience, and reflect in a less risky environment. Okay, next. With the second phase, we realized another good feature was anonymity, because both students from Central Escola University and Taylor's University have not met before, and they're meeting each other first time during the role-playing task. So that made the whole experience more authentic, right? And they didn't have to reveal their identity. They just came in as students and teachers and just conducted the role-playing task. Okay, next. So some of the benefits were increased engagement among learners. The most prominent benefit was a training platform for teachers to practice classroom management skills. Next. Promote visual learning as well, because everyone comes in as avatar, they view each other as avatars, and then they pay attention to the whole conversation, the dialogue, right? Okay, so it creates a new learning experience for the learners as well. And most of the digital natives or the younger generation, they enjoy this kind of learning environment as well. Okay, right, next. So conclusion. So this project is supported in several policies, such Shift 1 in Malaysian Education Blueprint, UN Strategic Development Goal. Okay, one of their aims also support teacher training and digital, promoting digital education, right? So it's also part of the Impact Lab initiative to create awareness or advocacy among teacher trainers as well, for teacher training as well. And the benefit is that teacher training program prepares future ready teachers to fulfill the demand of highly skilled new graduates, right? That need to be relevant global, need to be global education trends, to follow the relevant global education trends, which is moving towards digital education, right? Next. Okay, these are some of the recognitions that we got in internal grant. Next, and we won several awards as well. Next, yeah. Right. Okay, let's watch a short video to give you all an overview about what we did on EngageVR. Right. Ili, I can't hear the volume sound. Yeah, Ili, we can't hear the.
Can you refresh the screen?
I think she's having some technical issue. Shall I project the video?
There seems to be some issue with like sharing audio. You want to try?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why there's the issue right now.
Mm.
There it is.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
Good morning, students. So before we start our lesson, I'll make our classroom rule clear, okay? So rule number 1, no talking. Rule number 2, no walking around. Rule number 3, raise your hand before you speak, okay? So today's topic will be how junk food can harm our body. So let's play a game before I start explaining the lesson. Okay, Wan Tian, stop changing your place. Could you please sit down first? So Cassandra, can you select one person to answer your question?
Alisa.
Okay, how about Alisa?
Hi teacher, will I still answer the same letter C?
Yeah, sure.
Cheese.
Very good, cheese. So is cheese a junk food or it's a healthy food?
I think it's healthy.
Yeah, it should be if you do not overeat it. Okay, thank you, Alisa. You can choose a person to answer your question with the alphabet you like. Cassandra, please sit down. Thank you.
I choose Chloe and I choose the letter F.
Okay, thank you, Alisa. Can Chloe answer Alisa's question?
I want to eat McDonald's after class.
Cassandra, Eunice.
You want chicken nugget?
Cassandra, Eunice, I can see you both talking. You guys can discuss this later.
Me, since we're talking about food, I was just telling Mimis that I'm going to eat McDonald's later.
Okay, sure. You can get it after lunch, okay? Later lunch. AJ, can you name me a fruit that starts with the letter F?
Yes, teacher. I think a food that starts with the letter F, teacher, for me is fried chicken.
Cassandra and Chloe, could you please sit down? Thank you, Cassandra. Okay, thank you, Cassandra. A very gentle reminder, please drink a lot of water in a day and to keep your body, to keep your health balanced, okay? So, thank you everyone. Okay,
Thank
please
you,
sit down.
Miss.
Thank you.
Great. So good morning, everyone. My name is Teacher Joey, and as you know, I'm your teacher for our science subject. Now, let's set up some classroom rules before we proceed with our discussion for today. So raise your hand when you want to speak. Let's make sure that if we want to say something, we raise our hand and be quiet whenever teacher is talking. Stay in your seat. Let's use technology appropriately. Be quiet when your classmates are speaking. So when your classmates are giving their answer, make sure that we pay attention and listen to them. Can everyone see the star that we have in front today? Whoever will be our most behaved student and most participative student will get the star. Now let's start with our discussion.
Teacher, I'm raising my hand. You're not noticing me. Yeah, teacher.
Yes, Chloe.
You said that you were gonna give us a star if we behave.
Yes, that's correct.
And we don't want a star.
Oh, I have other things here. I have candies and whatever interest you have. But for now, Chloe, we have to learn the 5 senses first. Can I ask you to sit down?
I don't want to sit down.
Oh, if you don't sit down, then we'll be able to finish and learn the 5 senses.
I'll sit down.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for sitting down. And sorry, Tan, can you have a seat, please, as well? Now we will review what are the 5 senses, and later we are all going to stand up and sing a song about our 5 senses. Marty, what is the ears used for?
The ears is used for hearing.
Thank you, Marty. And what are your favorite sounds to hear, Marty?
I like listening to nature sounds.
That's right, nature sounds. Good job, Marty. All right, so since we've learned what are the use of our five senses, we're now going to sing. So I will ask every one of you to please stand up as we sing to our five senses song. First, teacher will give you the example of the song, as you can see on what I'm sharing on my screen right now. And then after that, we will sing all together. Eyes for seeing, no hand for touching. All right, so let's sing all together on my count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Eyes for seeing. All right, so that's our five senses. Good job, everyone. So the star goes to our most behaved and participative, Marty. Good job. Here's your star.
Congratulations, Marty.
And that's all for today, class. I hope you learned.
Right. Thank you very much, Ili, and thank you very much, everyone. So that comes to an end to my presentation. So I hope the role-playing task that you had watched earlier had given you all some insights about what we have done thus far, and the idea of incorporating the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity is also being projected to the role-playing task as well. Thank you very much. I pass the session to Dr. Charles. Over to you, Dr. Charles.
Yeah, before that, just to thank Dr. Lujana for the introduction to this project. And I think also for giving our audience, a peek into how, the virtual world looks like when we're doing the micro teaching sessions. So I think all must be also wondering what the platform is. So Dr. Charles, the director of Vortex, from the design school, Taylor's University, will give us more information on this platform. So you will introduce us to EngageVR in classrooms. Welcome, Dr. Charles.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Tan, Dr. Lojana. Hello, everybody. Hello, Professor Rilo, my fellow colleagues. It's a very good morning. Now, let's go on to the next slide. Thank you. Now, 10 years ago, I know this is a very old reference. 10 years ago, Jane McGonigal, she wrote a book called Reality is Broken. And according to her, for the next generation or two from that time, hang on. Okay. Can you all see just a video check? Everybody is okay? Give a thumbs up, everybody can see. We're actually hosting this stream in Vortex. So, okay, lovely. So basically, what's happening from 10 years ago, what was predicted was that next generation or two, large numbers of people, pretty much a large number of our population in this world will be very much immersed in virtual worlds and online games. So 10 years later, post-pandemic as well, what do you see? We see a huge boom in multiplayer games, a huge expansion of virtual worlds and metaverse initiatives. So you can move to the next slide, please. Yes, this is one example. It's just a screenshot of one random virtual world. So what is a virtual world? Now, as compared to reality, as a prelude to explaining why we chose Engage, is that in a virtual world, as compared to reality, a virtual world is limitless. Reality, according to Jane McGonigal, is broken in contexts where reality cannot give us what we actually want to achieve at most of the time. There's a lot that we want to do for our classrooms, as educators, but we are often limited by technology, we're limited by location, space, and many different kinds of limitations. Next slide, please. So we resorted to video conferencing, during pandemic, and even pre-pandemic, video conferencing was just a novel idea. Not everybody does it. It's only prioritized for remote connections and remote socializing and trying to connect with people in business, etc. But there's still limitations too. You're not exactly meeting face to face, but nevertheless, we are getting things done. We are productive to a certain sense. But in education, how will this have affected students? And there were many case studies and many studies and research concerning the stresses of online deliveries. Next slide, please. So over time, post-pandemic or during the pandemic, we see a huge boom of different kinds of apps, even in VR. Now, the word immersion and immersive terminologies like this have started to become a household name. Everyone wants to see a virtual world. Everybody wants to be part of it. Why? Because it's fun. It all started with multiplayer games, because in multiplayer games, the limitless of such environment allows you to do things you cannot do in the real world. Now, a big parallel can be seen in the world of education. Now, when you're teaching, you want to be able to do something that is unique and engaging with the new generation of learners. These are digital natives, definitely, because we're all born with technology. We're all we're walking hand in hand with artificial intelligence and the ability to create amazing visuals. But how do we connect that to learning? How do we bring this into the classroom? And how do we make the classroom or define the classroom in the coming years? So one of the answers is EngageVR. So now there are other platforms that we actually have tested, but EngageVR has been known to be very popular among educators. Next scene. So what we have found with EngageVR is that we see that it takes simulation to a new level, because I remember when I studied micro teaching a long time ago as an educator, we're often stuck in one type of room, and we try to configure the scenarios by role playing. Yes, we do role play, but very often we don't have enough people that we want to role play, because not everyone is always there. And it's done in a very formal sense, and sometimes it can be very lengthy. But at least the scenarios are being played out accordingly. So we do face specific limitations there. Sometimes we don't have the right projector. What if you want to incorporate technology during the micro teaching session? Times have changed. We are using lots of different kinds of teaching aids. So we want to make sure that we test out different ideas about student engagement during conducting micro teaching. So for pre-service teachers, for example, this is something that they can test out. They can test out their theories, their frameworks, their approaches. So in this case, user engagement is one of the critical point in trying to replicate it in a virtual environment. Second is social interaction. We ought to be able to speak to each other. It's really important, and Engage platform has provided this approach, this system, that we are able to do that in two ways, whether we can speak normally, or we can activate spatial audio. In spatial audio, it will simulate exactly how a classroom sound ambience would be. For example, if somebody were to sit at the back, they would sound like they're sitting at the back, right? So that's how it works. Then something like this, like a virtual classroom with Engage platform, it is actually an extension of a classroom. Yeah, it's an extension because, like again, in a physical classroom, you can't have or put objects as you like. You cannot bring a huge car into the classroom. You can't bring an engine into the classroom. But in this classroom, you can. So you can have it as a hybrid session or a fully VR session where you can explore even different spaces or environments. Then we also hear students telling each other, I'm sitting next to you, but you're not. You're actually connected to the Engage virtual classroom via remotely from different locations or different parts of the campus. But why do they feel present? Because of the visualization, the three-dimensional visualization of the person, the human being, perceives your presence. It makes you perceive that you're present in a 3D environment. So by seeing another 3D person next to you as a 3D avatar yourself, you would tend to use that sort of language. You might just say, well, I'm near this person. So by this sense of presence, you don't necessarily feel like you're just watching a screen or a video, not like Zoom or not like Microsoft Teams or etc. Now, then the last point is simulation. Simulation is one of the term, a very broad term, where education, it plays a vital role in the world of education. Now, in education, simulation comes in different frameworks, different approaches. But in this case, for micro-teaching, what we have done with Centro Escolar and the School of Education, Taylor's University, is we put simulation as a high priority, where we try to simulate a classroom, and we have the means, we have the avatars, we have the environments, and we have the sound, we have the ability to project learning materials, teaching aids, even within a VR classroom. So it replicates an actual classroom scenario. And that's not all. EngageVR platform like EngageVR also provide over 75 different locations. So we're able to explore, and who knows, if you want to test out teaching your classroom, not just in a classroom environment like this, but you can even test out your classroom if you're teaching them on the moon or something like that, yeah? As long as you have a novel purpose for it. Next slide, please. So EngageVR is basically a prime example of how we can actually surpass the limitations of a physical classroom. Now, the mechanism in how we can enjoy EngageVR or how we use it, you can use it without a headset or with a headset. A headset means a virtual reality headset. You can wear it and you have 6 degrees of freedom in the environment. It tracks your movement, body, hands, everything. But let's just say if most of our learners, they don't have one. Not everybody has a headset, and sometimes not everybody are able to wear one. So this is one of the things that my counterpart Faisal and I, when we were running this onboarding program in Taylor's, we did explain that every person has their capacity to understand or get used to the idea of wearing a headset. But what if you don't? You can still do it via desktop. So if your laptop could have the minimum requirements to run this platform, you definitely can. And you can also run this platform on your smartphone, on your tablet as well. So very flexible, and students have been participating in this platform very often. So as you can see, these are just screenshots, but we have branding capabilities. We are able to host large numbers of participants, and we look forward to seeing what this can do. And there's many ways that how we can approach a virtual reality teaching simulations. Next slide, please. So we have been rigorously running this onboarding program even before Vortex XR Lab got started, and we were excited that the School of Education actually was really interested to run a simulation like this, because you want to preserve anonymity. You want students to seamlessly participate and play their roles in this. So this has been a viable solution, and we have had many sessions with training since 2021. And we have been running this, and now it's getting increasing, and we are very happy to tell you that there are a lot more educators who are very curious, and they are trying it out with us. So I'm going to next slide. So we started this program called XRope, and I'm going to pass the session to my colleague and our XR specialist in Vortex XR Lab. He will be explaining a lot more about the technicalities of these training programs that we have. And yeah, so this concludes, and this is a screenshot. This is like a screenshot. I mean, you can even take like a group shot, and it's really good fun. So you have a sense of entertainment, you have a sense of learning, sense of presence. So it's a really good way to continue testing this and continue using this. So that's all. That concludes my presentation. So before, last but not least, for those who are in Taylor's University, you see this little code. Yeah, feel free to scan that code, and if you want to connect with us. And we also have a YouTube channel and our Instagram channel. Now, if you join, for everybody else here, for everyone here, yeah, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and Instagram channel. In our Instagram channel, we have a special XR filter. Give it a shot. So thank you very much. Over to you, Faisal and Dr.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Charles, for again introducing us to the fun of EngageVR and the virtual world, and there's so many possibilities of it. But as you mentioned, I think there are also a lot of preparatory work to be done to be able to really engage in this. So I think Mr. Faisal after this will talk more about he's the XR specialist from Vortex, the design school of Taylor's University. So we'll talk more about the onboarding sessions, because all the fun, all this actually also came with preparation and also practice. Okay, over to you, Mr. Faisal.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Is everybody can hear my voice and can see me? You're right.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with the first slide. So today I'll be talking more about EngageVR and our XRope onboarding sessions. So basically like how we conducted our onboarding sessions and whatnot, and basically what the things that we learned from that. So next slide. So that's basically it. So we're going to talk about what is XRope. I think that was mentioned a bit by Dr. Charles. How do we set up the session and what were the things that we learned? Okay, so next. So just a short introduction about myself. My name is Faisal Atrabimo Fazil. I'm an XR specialist and enthusiast. I studied creative multimedia, majoring in VR, graduated in 2007. I've worked in various VR and XR projects for the past probably 10 years. I've taught VR as well, and have a family of 2 cats and fan of pro wrestling. Okay, next. So what is XRope? Next. XRope is basically an XR onboarding program. It is part of our Vortex introductory initiative as a form of inducting academics and students in exploring XR approaches in teaching and learning, as well as exploring content creation and other related needs. So it's not just limited for this particular class per se. We open the actual program for all of the Taylor's universities, staff, academics, and students. So if you go next, basically, next slide, please. So X-Rope consists of a few things. Basically, one is basically the familiarization and training sessions. We also have like webinar series, which we conduct a series of webinars about various topics within XR. We handle our XR social media, basically about like filters on Instagram, about like our social presence. We have our VR immersion, basically, and our XR Club member training and development program. So having said that as well, we have Vortex as well. I think it's over here, right? Vortex XR is basically a facility under Taylor's, which has this particular gadgets and headsets and talents to allow teachers and students to experience XR. So not just basically having them just to experience, go blindly in it, but we will provide the training and familiarization and exploring and whatnot. That's kind of like the idea of what Vortex is and how this particular extra program helps. These are some images on a few of different extra programs that we conducted. Up there is basically on a different software for virtual production, basically using a different software. And the below is called the EngageVR, but open up not just for the School of Education, but for other academicians as well. The idea is to have like the idea is to have like the other lecturers and other schools as well to try to jump on board and try it out and test to see if it works with their modules and whatnot. And we can guide them and we can assist them into that. And if one platform doesn't work, we can find other platforms and just to suit better with whatever their problem statements are, basically. Next. So setting up the Engage VR X-Rope sessions. These are basically some of the sessions. We conducted a few sessions, a few physical and a few remote. So there are challenges, obviously. I think that the earliest extra program that I was involved in, at least like was in March last year. Wow, it's already for nearly a year. So we had that physical session. I think like the two images, the top right and the lower left. Basically, we need to have like various multiple VR headsets, because the ideal way of experiencing Engage VR would be in virtual reality. So you need the headset. So Vortex has multiple number of those headsets, and all of it needs to be charged and whatnot. And we will try to find a specific space that has the capacity for bandwidth and whatnot. And we would have to kind of like get them adjusted to the headset itself. So first and foremost, we need to onboard them on the headset first and foremost. And what is the Meta Quest 2? And what do you do with it? How do you press button? How do you walk and whatnot? So we need to do that like individually per user per se, because like not everybody learns in different pace per se. So we need to kind of like understand how they would understand things as well. So the challenge as well is a bit different when you do it remotely, because like or remotely, we're not there to kind of like put your headset on or whatnot. They would be with us virtually, either from their desktop or laptops or from their smartphones. So sometimes the user interface is a bit different, and how they engage things will be different. And obviously, like the first thing we will need to teach them is like how to set up an account, how to navigate per se. So we need to kind of like be very clear in our instructions per se. So we need to kind of like, and we need to really guide them really through, because we need to make sure that they are following us on the basics and the fundamentals parts first before they can actually participate in the actual classes and modules and whatnot. So that is a bit of a challenge, but that was the thing basically. As the trainers as well, we need to kind of be prepared of that, understand that there are certain maybe like terms people from different backgrounds might not understand per se. Like me say, sometimes you could just say, well, press this button to teleport and whatnot, teleport forward. Not everybody truly understands that particular term per se. So you need to kind of like, sometimes you just have to adjust, or you press this to jump forward when you see the little circle on the floor. So just those nuanced little things at times, but those are the things that really make the difference actually. because it really helps soothe the onboarding process. Because usually when as students, or like the ones that first time want to try out these new platforms, they want to feel comfortable and don't want to feel lost. And like the first thing, if you feel lost in it, you're just gonna be turned off about it, and then I just don't want to proceed. It just doesn't make it feel fun anymore, even though everybody says it's such a fun experience. So we want to make sure that that's not the case. As you can see, these are some of the experiences, and the GIF below there was like Dr. Lojana in VR itself and conducting one of her classes, and we can like have to prep that in Vortex basically. So she's using a PC-based VR headset using the HTC Vive, which is a bit different more or less. Next. So what were the lessons learned about this sessions? So we noticed that obviously, as mentioned before, previous speakers as well, preparation is key. There's a lot of preparation. We need to really understand the target user and what it's going to be used for, and which target platform we're going to use. Training platform, is it going to be physical, is it going to be remote? Because the way we communicate is a bit different, and the way we approach things is a bit different. If you're physical, you need to kind of like really provide the headsets and whatnot, make sure the equipments are fully charged, make sure they're in a safe space and whatnot, so you don't go banging on walls or like each other and whatnot. If it's remote, then we need to understand like what they are seeing. We need to really always have that communication going, because we're not there to help them physically. So we need to kind of like always ask the question, okay, what do you see right now? Okay, try pressing this. What happens? And if you press this, what happens? And then if you do this, what happens? So, and then the first thing you need to make sure, basically, like obviously the bandwidth is okay for both ends, so that all the operations is smooth. Because first and foremost, EngageVR is an online tool which requires a bit more bandwidth than like online meetings platforms like Zoom or like Teams and whatnot. So really require that. And then space, obviously you need that space. Audio is a key as well, especially either remote or physical. When you're doing it physical, because the audio, everybody is talking and the same space, you need to make sure that they are not echoing each other. So usually we would advise that people in physical VR headsets, they would have to have like a physical headset, headphones to attach to the headset, so that they will talk through their mic. So it won't echo bounce with everybody else. You won't catch other people's voice and whatnot. And what was it again? Oh, there was one more thing I forgot to add that in, which is adapting. Because all of this is basically just more about getting them to try getting into the VR, getting into the EngageVR. There is a bit I noticed as well on certain a few remote sessions, or a few of the onboarding sessions, the classroom sessions, that there are things that teachers might do, like they want to do activities and they want to communicate certain things that they would see it is usually performed in physical format. If you want to get people to just don't be bored of the session, okay, get them to stand up. Let's try to kind of like walk around, or let's try to kind of like wiggle our hips or whatnot. There are things that you're not be able to do in technically VR per se, but you can. There are it is a bit limited a bit, where especially when you're using your phone or desktop, you can ask them, okay, raise your hand, because there's a button to do that. You press, can you ask them to clap? Then they can do that. But if you want them to say, especially like, or there's experience I saw, like Simon says, can you say this? And I say this. So the audio needs to be really, really clear to make sure that everybody needs. So there's a lot of like factors you need to kind of like consider when you do these things. So those are the things basically I noticed that we learn throughout our journey, and we try to keep on improving on that. And I think that covers it. Next, that's basically like the lessons that we learn, and hopefully we're going to keep on continuing, make it even better. And I hope you enjoyed my talk. And if there's any other question, you can put it in the Q&A session at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Faisal. So we have heard from the panelists from Taylor's University. Now we're moving on to still Taylor University, but it's from our students. Miss Ishana talking about her experience while being in the project. Isha, okay. Over to you.
Hi. So thank you everyone first for having me here in this webinar to talk about my experience with EngageVR. So moving on to the next slide. To just share about my experience, I feel like I got the opportunity to try out EngageVR both remotely to my PC and also physically through the Vortex Lab. I got to do this because I was under Dr. Lojana's one of the modules called Recent Development in ELT. So when looking back at my experience and looking back at whatever I've done in this module and looking what the opportunities I've got, I realized that I was able to branch out my experiences into four main categories, which is collaboration, engagement, visualization, and classroom management. However, I thought it'd be interesting to also share my themes or my categories in a perspective of a student who will be learning in a classroom, and also as a pre-service teacher, how I could use such software to my benefit in teaching my future classrooms. So when talking about collaboration, I would like to direct everyone to the first picture we see, which is a selfie that I took with my friends and when we were trying out the EngageVR. So what's interesting about that picture is that couple of us, both of us, were actually physically present in the Vortex Lab trying out the VR headset, while the other two of my friends were unfortunately not able to join in class, and they joined in through their own PC remotely. So even though we were actually in different ends, it did not feel as such, because when we physically got to see each other, it gave us the opportunity to work together and also learn from each other. What I would say is that through this going through Vortex and trying out different environments, we got to try out a classroom environment due to role-playing activity and also going on space. We were able to interestingly keep the conversation going and share our understanding of the given environment despite us being far away from each other. So as a teacher, one thing that we could do using a platform as such is provide more role-playing activities for students so that they are able to implicitly introduce English proficiency skills, which would be reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So when I say implicitly, through role-playing scenarios, when, for example, role-playing as news anchors, it gives students first the authenticity of how this play or this role actually acts out in society, or how it acts out outside of the classroom. It gives them the liberty to understand how this context actually plays out. Similarly, it helps them practice how they could speak and listen to each other, at the same time read and write their own scripts. It gives them an easy accessibility and transition when using EngageVR. Also, as a pre-service teacher, not gonna lie, if you step into a classroom for the first time, you will feel extremely anxious and frantic. But I got the opportunity to try EngageVR before my second practicum, and it actually helped me feel more comfortable, especially because I got the opportunity to do the role-playing session in a classroom setting. It kind of helped me predict how my classroom will look like. It made me understand the expectations I should have, at the same time prevent potential challenges that could occur. So that's pretty exciting for me as a pre-service teacher, that I got to see all of this before actually stepping into the real world. And now going into engagement. From a student's perspective, not gonna lie, going into EngageVR, it was really interesting. It really piques your interest because when you go into such platform and you're given opportunities to physically see your friend through an avatar without actually being close to them, it just makes you want to know more and makes you want to learn more in that environment. So that's how we felt as students as well. And I remember when we got the opportunity to try EngageVR, the first couple of minutes, my friends and I were just looking at each other and just being like, oh, wow, this is cool. Like we were like clapping and we were like high-fiving each other. It was really amazing. So it really gets you motivated to learn in such environment because it piques your interest. Hence, it actually increases your engagement in the lesson and also develops the student-teacher relationship that you are looking to have. And as an educator, I find myself that when your students are more engaged in the classroom and you're able to see them react to concepts or theories they are trying to explain, it's easy for you to observe and assess their understanding in comparison to a normal classroom or like an online classroom where most students are passive and they don't really respond much. So you could see the comparison of how passive students and students who don't respond much, it's really hard for you as a teacher to see what they're learning or how you want to assess or which part of the lesson you want to emphasize. With EngageVR, it gives you an easier transition. Hence, it's easier for you to see which part of the lesson you would want to emphasize more in future lesson plans and what challenges a student might face in an activity itself. So going into visualization, I would like to talk about how I've seen different students with different learning styles. And for example, for myself, I'm a visual learner, meaning if I'm being introduced to a concept, I love seeing the whole picture. Hence, you could see me doing mind maps, or I'm just scribbling down on a rough piece of paper to just get all my ideas down so that I could branch it out very well. And having an opportunity or even to produce or like to even introduce an app like EngageVR into classrooms, it really helps students who need that visualization to learn better because the concepts and theories they're trying to introduce are simplified because it's presented in a visual manner. So for example, if you are trying to teach about role playing, about how to speak in different scenarios, or even as a science educator who you're looking to teach about space and teaching about planets and the sun, showing the planet and also visualizing the concept itself and seeing how the solar system works or seeing how the environment works really helps students to understand concepts that they would previously find hard, now simply easy. And as an educator, having the room to literally show students and simplify content helps you to expand more in your learning outcomes. Because most classroom these days, we see learning outcomes which just follow the below 3 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. However, when you introduce, for example, a platform where you can expand students' knowledge and also expand students' skills, it gives you the room to introduce higher order thinking skills and learning outcomes which encourages those skills. So the following actually gives them to grow throughout the Bloom's taxonomy module and also helps students build out practical skills that they could help themselves in the 21st century. Lastly, talking about classroom management, this was a little challenging at first as students because, as mentioned by Mr. Faisal, you have to create your account, you have to go in, you need to know the keys that you have to use. And I remember when we all got in, most of my peers had the struggle of learning how to sit on our chairs in the classroom because we didn't know how the keys worked. However, I would say this, with challenges like this, it comes with the complexity of the software. And with complexity, it gives opportunity for all of us to learn better. So for example, like these keys and all of these new software and features, it actually gives students and teachers like a bigger room and opportunity to play around with education and the process of learning. So I would honestly say that we took the struggle for like the first 10 to 15 minutes, but after that, it became a blast. We had an amazing time while we were in the classroom at the same time physically in the Vortex lab. So also as educators, it may be easier for you to set up rules and regulations, for example, classroom expectations that I've mentioned previously, and also in a way check in with students emotionally to see whether they are understanding the lesson or to see how they are perceiving the lesson as a whole. Because when you're in a physical classroom, sometimes you might get easily distracted because it's a big classroom. You have to look at every angle, you have to look at everything that's happening around you. But being in a screen, in a Vortex screen, you can have an eye on each student and check in with them as your ease. So this is actually my experience with EngageVR and how it helped me as a student and teacher in my practicum and also will be helping me in my future classrooms. And that's all for me. Thank you so much. I'm going to be passing it back to Dr. Tan.
Okay, thank you, Isha, for sharing your experience and perspective from these 4 main aspects: collaboration, engagement, visualization, and classroom management. So next, we will hear from Mr. Wan Tian. So just like Isha, Wan Tian is a student in the Bachelor's of Education program, specializing in teaching of English. So over to you, Wan Tian.
Hi, my name is Wan Tian from Taylor's University. I'm currently in my 3rd and final year of my program, Bachelor's of Education, with the specialization of teaching of English. And since last year, March, I was introduced to EngageVR in the module Recent Development in ELT. And I had the honor to experience using explore EngageVR more for back-to-back in 2 semesters. So it had opened my eye to a new world of virtual reality and extended reality in education and teacher training. And therefore today, I'll be sharing my experience in using EngageVR as a global pre-service teacher. Next slide, please. So for the couple of semesters, we have done virtual role-playing micro-teaching activities using EngageVR. I also had the honor, the opportunity to use the app in the desktop version, and also through using the VR headsets in the Vortex lab. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our virtual role-playing micro-teaching activities, we worked as students. We worked in groups where one student role-play as a teacher, whereas other students role-play as problematic students who keeps disrupting the lesson. And in the role-playing activities, each role had to act according to their respective roles. And I remember very specifically the instruction that given to us was the problematic students had to cause disruption to the lesson. They had to create a really stressful and challenging situation for the teacher to manage. So for us students, this sounds quite like a fun experience. It's not something that you are allowed to do in many situations. So it was quite exciting. And for example, we can walk around in classrooms. We don't have to pay attention or follow any instructions. You might even argue with other students, or refusing to speak in the target language, especially in a language class. So as we role play as the problematic students, you basically can do any undesirable or off-task behaviors that teachers may come across in class. On the other hand, as for the teacher, their main goal is, of course, to carry out the lesson and manage the disruptive behaviors. And this is where they would bring in and practice their classroom management skills. And they have to restore the order in the classroom and maintain the lesson flow. So under these stressful situations, they have to remain resilient and be adaptive to respond to these behaviors that are presented by these students. Next slide, please. All right, and now I'm going to share about how I have benefited from the integration of EngageVR in the virtual role-playing micro-teaching activities. First of all, I think it provides us a safe and secure environment for us pre-service teachers to carry out micro-teaching activities. So it allows us to bridge our prior knowledge of teaching and learning theories with actual practice. And we get to practice our classroom management skills in a simulated classroom environment. And for the past micro-teaching sessions, I realized that what works well in a physical classroom may not be as effective for the virtual environment, especially in terms of classroom management skills. So for example, in most of the theories and knowledges that we get from our past lectures, it's mostly taught and based in a physical classroom setting. Not a lot is for the virtual classroom or virtual environment. So, excuse me. So through this micro teaching activity, we get to learn and adapt what we have learned from the theories, or even figure out strategies that works in a different classroom setting. So for example, we might need to set different classroom rules or agreements that emphasis on the responsible use of technology during class, specifically if you're in a virtual classroom. And this helps us to develop a new set of classroom management skills and teaching strategies specifically for this kind of environment. And I think as mentioned in our previous presentations by our panelists, we can get to make more mistakes over and over and over, and also learn from our trials and errors before we get to work with real students in the real world. So it kind of prepares us for what we're about to face in future classrooms. And as well, the data and feedback that we get from the micro teaching sessions are very valuable for our reflection and also improvement. As said before, EngageVR also helps us, the users, to protect our identity and it promotes anonymity. So some students, they might feel burdened to present their faces in the online environment. So this app, EngageVR, it allows us to join in as virtual avatars, which for me, it actually does make me allows me to be less burdened. Less burdened. So, and I feel more open and confident to present myself in this virtual environment as an avatar. And I think another important point is that playing different roles helps to understand respective roles better. So, for example, when you're role playing as the teacher, you get a heads up of how disruptive the classroom can be. And this strengthens our readiness to work with students and to teach in real life classrooms. And as students, we enter their position to understand their problems and challenges, as well as to understand the underlying causes to the disruptive behavior. So, and I believe that knowing and understanding students is the key to effective classroom management strategies. The EngageVR app also provides us various functionality to meet our teaching and learning needs. So they have like a large collection of immersive effects. I think this is like a really great highlight of the app. And this allows pre-service teachers to probably add any 3D modules, special effects to your lessons to visualize complex concepts and also create immersive learning experiences. Next slide, please. So I'm gonna talk about my experience with collaborating with our peers from Central Escola University. So back in August 2020, along me and with my classmates, we had an opportunity to collaborate with the students from the Central Escola. So we had about 4 virtual role-playing micro-teaching sessions. And I think the greatest challenge for us is, for example, as I role-play as the teacher, the students that I'll be managing are role-played by our friends from Central Escola. And this is really challenging for me because first, we don't know each other and everything can be spontaneous. So I don't know what kind of behavior that they're gonna put out. And it's a great challenge for me to be adaptive and resilient on the spot. And of course, at first, I was also quite hesitant on how to interact with them. I was feeling a bit uncertain about the situation. But as the role-playing activities happens, the interaction happens really naturally. And especially when we role-play as students. So we would gladly play along with each other's misbehavior, although none of our actions were scripted. And we were very supportive of each other. And I could tell that our friends from Central Escola has put in a really great dedication and effort in the role playing micro teaching sessions. Um, they're really well prepared. I really learned a lot from the way they present themselves as teachers, how they interact with students, and also the flow of the lessons. So I really appreciate this collaboration opportunity with students from a different culture, a different country, and I get to learn from through our the differences and also similarities that I've observed throughout the sessions. And this collaboration proves that EngageVR helps us to overcome that physical barriers posed by our geographical distance and allowing us educators and prospective educators to come together in virtual reality to learn with each other and also um, to discuss about the future of education with virtual reality. And I think and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Wan Tian, for sharing your experience and I think also the impacts that it has had on your learning and development as a student teacher, as well as also, highlighting the fruitful collaboration between Taylor's University and Central Escola University. So I think now it's time that we invite our respected counterpart students. We will start with students from Central Escola University. First of all, we'll start with Miss Elisa Ashley Seal. She's a student in the Bachelor of Special Needs Education program, and her specialization is in childhood education. So we'll hear more from Elisa about her experience being part of this project. Over to you, Elisa.
Hello, everyone. I would like to express, of course, my gratitude for being invited at today's talk. Many of my experiences actually are very similar to other panelists, but I will be leaning more towards the angle of special education and EngageVR and its benefits to us future special education educators. Okay, next slide, please. So before I start talking about all my experiences, I just want to quickly introduce myself. I am Elisa Ashley Boyser Shaw, and I am taking up Bachelor of Special Needs Education, major in Early Childhood Education in Centro Escolar University in Manila. Next slide, please. So, how was EngageVR introduced to you? To start off my presentation, let me first tell you a little background about how we were introduced to EngageVR. So, here are snippets from the past. So, when Professor Richard Villo, Sir Rich, announced that we will be collaborating with students from Taylor's University, we were very excited and looking forward to meeting new people and being able to have new experiences. Next slide, please. And of course, before everything else, we started by being briefed on how and where to download the said application. Next slide, please. Upon installing it in our respective gadgets, CEU and Taylor's University had several meetings for us to be familiar with each other and learn the basics of EngageVR. We then proceeded to explore its interface, like the main menu, how to exit, learn what buttons to press, how to create avatars, and learn to be familiar with all the features of EngageVR. We also learned the controls to use when inside the virtual classroom, like raising hands, clapping of hands, and sitting down, and just all the actions that the features EngageVR had. Next slide, please. Then we learned that there were so many maps in EngageVR, and it was really exciting for us, at least on my end, since we were so used to using applications that only lets us see each other yet and have very limited features. We had fun walking around the maps, looking at different places, exploring the virtual worlds, and looking at different views. Next slide, please. And of course, we had micro teaching activities like role plays and teaching demonstrations that really helped me as a pre-service teacher. But I will dwell on that more on the latter part of this presentation. Let us move on to the experiences themselves. Next slide, please. So the experience itself was a breath of fresh air because it was something new. So we usually use Zoom, right, and Google Meet to hold our classes, which only allows us to close and open our cameras and microphones. But Engage VR allows us to create avatars that look like ourselves and see each other move around the virtual classroom. It is also fun and creative, as I have said earlier, because there were so many maps aside from the classrooms. Like it had coffee shops, library, and a theater, which is very interesting for me. It is also user friendly since there was nothing too complex, and everything was easy to comprehend with the help of the Taylor's University and the team members of Vortex. It also encourages interaction between teachers and students since there are features like raising their hands, moving around, and has the option to open your microphone as well. It is also collaborative because you can work around the virtual environment with your peers and learn from one another. Next slide, please. However, despite all the good impacts of Engage VR, there are still setbacks in our experience. So we had difficulty learning the controls the first time. Like for example, we had students from our class who used different gadgets like cell phones, iPads, and laptops. So there were differences in our controls. We also had poor connection sometimes that really hindered the use of Engage VR. On my end, I also had problems for downloading the application since I had a little storage on my laptop, but it worked out well in the end. And of course, we had trouble familiarizing ourselves with the features like screen sharing in the application, but it worked out well as well because we were helped by the Taylor's University. Next slide, please. Okay, now we move on to the benefits of Engage VR to us pre-service teachers and future special education teachers. As a pre-service teacher, Engage VR opened new ways to approach teaching learning through its features like having an avatar of your own, seeing one another, clapping your hands, and being able to move around the classroom. Next slide, please. So the role playing teaching demonstrations and micro teaching activities that we have held in Engage VR really helped me in building my confidence and prepare myself for the future. We had teaching demonstrations wherein we role played a classroom setting with disruptive students to prepare educators on how they will handle these difficult situations. Platforms like Engage VR also adds to the competence in using the technology of free service teachers like us and instill a scientific outlook. So as we live in a world where technology advances day by day, it's really important that we learn new applications like this. So it will help us future educators to keep up with all the advances in the field of technology. Next slide, please. While as a future special education educator, Engage VR helps widens the variety of teaching methods there is in online teaching that will help in catering to our future students' needs. Since there are so many features in Engage VR, we teachers can use them to conduct different activities that can cater to the different learning styles of our unique learners. Next slide, please. So Engage VR can also serve as a tool for teachers in maximizing the learning of our students with memory, attention, or other challenges in their thinking skills. These tools offer a personalized educational experience that helps students learn at their own pace and addresses their unique needs. However, of course, these tools will only provide its function if we help them understand the type of tool that they need. Next slide, please. Engage VR also is similar to other tools that offer a personalized educational experience that helps the students learn at their own pace and address their unique needs. Since it is an application that allows students to have more control over what they wish to do and create their own avatars, it promotes a more individualized educational experience and will help them feel more comfortable and secure in the learning environment. Next slide, please. And with that, we are going to end my sharing, I would just like to share that for me, EngageVR is an innovative application that opens new doors and takes virtual teaching and learning to the next level. Its concept goes outside the box of the usual platforms and tools being used in the field of virtual education and makes learning more interesting. And that concludes my presentation for today, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.
Thank you very much for your sharing, Alisa. So we'll now hear from another student, Miss Divina Catherine Gotuko. So she's also a student in the Bachelor of Special Needs Education program with a specialization in early childhood education. So Divina, whenever you're ready. Yep.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. First, I will introduce myself. My name is Divina Catherine F. Guduco from Central Escolar University, Malolos, currently taking Bachelor of Special Needs Education major in Early Childhood Education. Let's start. Next slide, please. Okay, let's start my presentation, the EngageVR, the key to unlocking SPED students' potential. Okay, how did you find out about EngageVR? First, we had a discussion with my professor about EngageVR, and we'll be working with Taylor's University students. We talked with Professor Richard Rillo about the platform EngageVR for VR remote learning, virtual events, and collaborations. The complete curriculum may be utilized within businesses, but users can also join open sessions, which include both live and recorded lessons. Next slide, please. Until we downloaded it, Dr. Charles and Professor Mr. Faisal of Taylor's University teach us how to download EngageVR and how to sign in. They teach us the basic controls of EngageVR and how to make an avatar that fits you. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about experiences. Next slide, please. Although the program is downloadable for mobile devices and PCs, EngageVR is best enjoyed with the VR headsets. We participated in a demo lessons using this type of EngageVR, which gave our parks thrills of enthusiasm they had never experienced before. Is focused more on educational, exploratory, and interactive activities. Next slide, please. Also, it can be used for training, conferences, and even trade shows. We experience virtual world that can be a classroom and teach us some lectures with Taylor's University. Next. So let's talk about benefits of EngageVR on SPED students. First, giving control to students with special needs. Students in special education may have physical restrictions that limit their ability to influence their everyday circumstances. Students with impairments, however, may alter their settings through varied action when using virtual reality. Students who would not normally have this sense of control are given a sense of skill of mastery by having them practice physical abilities that complement their own rehabilitation goals. Second, students with disabilities can practice real-world skills. Students with disabilities have the chance to practice real-world skills in a secure setting thanks to virtual reality. Students may practice everyday activities in virtual reality like dressing, following traffic signals, when crossing the streets, and grocery shopping. Students could even have the opportunity to go on virtual field trips to locations in their areas that they wouldn't typically be able to visit. Next slide, please. Third benefits, managing stimuli. Virtual reality interfaces may be customized to meet the needs of each child. Students with sensory impairments, such as those who can't tolerate a lot of stimulation, can, for example, utilize the virtual reality interface in a customized way that displays fewer audio or visual clues. And last benefits on SPED students is social advantages and higher self-esteem. Some virtual application, some virtual reality applications allows user to connect. This offers children with disabilities an important social opportunity they may not typically experiences in classes, allowing them to engage with classmates, both those with and those without impairments. Is- Students frequently have the have the option of selecting an avatar, an animated character that represents them in the virtual reality environment. Students can concentrate on how they picture themselves without the limitation of their disability with the aid of this avatar. Next slide, please. So this is my presentation, the EngageVR Daki to Unlocking SPED Students' Potential. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Divina, for sharing. So thanks again to Divina and Elisa for sharing how this may also work in the special needs education settings. So thank you. So finally, we've come to the last panelist for today. So he's Assistant Professor Richard Rillo from School of Education, Liberal Arts, Music and Social Work, Central Escola University. So Assistant Professor Richard.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shing. For this morning, I'm tasked to deliver the closing remarks and some insights on our experiences with our collaboration with the Taylor's University. The year that was, where are we heading to? The year 2020 is perhaps one of the most infamously unforgettable years in the history of mankind. This year brought horror, fear, and uncertainties to all the peoples of the world. Yes, the year was 2020. The year that was, the year that is, and the year that will be constantly associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. As this pandemic has affected all facets of our lives as social beings, it has shaken immensely our educational programs and systems. School operations from around the globe had to momentarily pause for an average of 79 teaching days. 79 days of missed learning and moving forward toward the future of our race. This, however, is not true in all parts of the world. The Philippines, for instance, has a different narrative to tell. We did not close our schools for an average of 79 days only. We closed them for more than a year. That resulted to a lot of struggles and challenges to both our educational system and our society. Apart from lost learning, many of our young students suffer mental distress, missed vaccinations, and even child labor, while our schools experience heightened dropout rates and insufficiency in school facilities, infrastructures, and resources to carry out advanced modalities in teaching and learning. In my technology in language learning class during those semesters, I was frequently asked by the pre-service teachers the questions, "Sir, how do I manage my class when I teach online? How do I deal with my misbehaving students if I teach remotely? And how do I keep my teaching materials interesting, engaging in the different learning environments?" Given the context and the challenges that we have in the country, Those questions are very difficult to answer with such an assurance. For teaching them how to overcome those challenges will be easy on me, but for them, I'm pretty sure doing the actual teaching soon may even raise more questions and increase their confusions. This joint project between the Taylor's University in Malaysia and the Centro Escolar University in the Philippines has honestly shed a luminous light of clarity as to where we are all heading in the years to come. Indeed, transformational education is at the core of this project. That is why I am thankful for this collaboration, for it has paved the way for me and my students to have ensuring answers to our questions by having attained them through the series of collaborative activities that we had with you. In our immersion to our virtual classroom teaching simulations that highlighted virtual classroom management and the use of an AR/VR platform for effective teaching and learning, we can say that we are now more prepared to face the challenges in teaching that we have before us. In this collaboration, both the participants from our universities have experienced to get engaged in classroom interactions despite remoteness. Tenacity in teaching, above all others, has also been clearly exhibited and demonstrated in those simulations as our pre-service teachers are immersed in artificial intelligence in education using the EngageVR. Further, this EngageVR made us all realize impactful and achievable preparations for the adoption of the AI in education that could help us overcome challenges that may put another halt to our school operations, thus making great resets in education easier to manage. The way towards there may still be a dream for us now, for the way may be a rocky one. In this preparation stage that we are all in, where we are at the point of trying new things for us, we experience our different challenges, our own different challenges for that matter, while we also learn from them. There were several occasions, Dr. Lajana, you can still remember, in our schedules that are conflicting, but we are still able to manage to come together and plan things out. Our beliefs, practices, and cultures, yes, they're different, but we are still able to be in the same virtual classroom where there is less social interaction and successfully share with each other our best classroom practices, reconcile our differences, and even enable us to move in one uniform direction. Now, more than ever, I feel more confident to face the aftermath of the pandemic in our current educational situation, for I know that I'm not alone in this journey. Finally, I can now assure my pre-service teachers that tomorrow is a better chapter in our narrative. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you also have the same takeaways that I got from this collaborative experience. For this, I'd like to thank everybody for this opportunity that you have provided us. And of course, special mention to Dr. Joseph Velarde for linking us to the Taylor's University. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Associate Professor Richard Willow. Thank you too for being, part of this project with your university and your students. Thank you so much. And so we have come to the end of this panel discussion. So thank you again, a big thank you to all our panelists. And it has been such an enlightening session. So after this, we will have a group photo session as well as a Q&A session. So we already have a few questions in the chat. Those of you, if you have more questions or comments or feedback, please feel free to put them in the chat. So I think now we will proceed. Ely, I will assist with the group photo, right? So everyone, please kindly show yourself on the screen so that we can take as a memorable moment here together. Okay, I think we'll give you 10 seconds to get ready, prep yourself, and be ready for the photo taking session. Okay, 10 seconds, yeah?
Okay, can I start now?
Yeah, maybe just a few more seconds, Tanhei. I think some are still getting ready. We hope to have more in this memorable photo. So more students, more people, staff, colleagues, feel free to show yourself on the screen, please. Okay, so I think Dr. Joseph is here as well, right? I think,
Okay.
okay, yeah, I think we can, yeah, go ahead, please, Tanhei.
Okay, I have 3 pages here, so I'll take the first one first. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next page. 1, 2, 3. Last page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, also a shout out to Dr. Vino. I just saw her. So Dr. Vino also joined us during the onboarding session actually. Yeah. Okay. So now Q&A. Time for Q&A. So we have 2 questions so far. Maybe let me invite Dr. Lojana to maybe take the first question by Zhang Yi.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tan, and thank you very much to all the panelists who had shared their experiences from various angles, as Associate Prof. Rido with his experience of international collaboration, Dr. Charles and Mr. Faisal from the on the EngageVR and immersive learning, right? The students from the Central Escola University who had actually taken an additional effort to highlight on the special needs education as well, right? As well as Taylor's University students, Tovante and Ishana of their experiences as part of the team, right? Also, a big thank you to Dr. Joseph for connecting us and to make this collaboration a reality, right? So I would like to take the first question. Are there educational scenarios that might be modeled on other contexts, such as English learning, topic animals? Students can learn the words. Yeah, basically the scenarios are created by the students, right? So the first round that we actually tried EngageVR, which is within the just with students from Taylor's University. It was in an English language classroom context, and we had various scenarios on word formation, and the topics came from a variety of contexts. So if you know your target learners and you know the ability or the proficiency level of the students, you can actually create the content to suit your learners' needs, right? So I believe Associate Prof. Vilo also can add to this question. Associate Prof. Vilo, you want to add some more and elaborate on this question? Associate Prof. Vilo, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to locate the question.
Oh, okay. It's in the chat box. By Zhang Yi.
By Zhang Yi.
Zhang Yi, sorry.
Are there educational scenarios that might be modeled in other contexts, such as English learning topic, animals, students can learn words of various animals in the sea? I think the EngageVR offers a lot of options for us to do such educational scenarios. I remember there are even realias that we can actually get for free and use it as an actual example in a classroom scenario. I remember when we were in the what do you call this, in the auditorium of our EngageVR simulation, there's this elephant that was taken out from the from that options of animals and objects that you can actually show and model to your audience. So I think there are, but I don't know if that would be better explored if you have a more premium version of an Engage VR. But I think we have a premium version of the Engage VR. I don't know if the free version of the Engage VR would allow this.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Associate Prof. Rilo. Yeah, as what is mentioned by Associate Prof. Rilo, there are the free version is also the premium version. So for a start, depending on the resources that you have, you can actually try out the free version first. But if you are with Vortex at Taylor's University, they will actually give access to the premium version, and we can explore more realia, right? More objects that can be introduced in our classroom. But most importantly, you need to actually identify what is your learning objectives and your needs for that particular lesson, and then you plan along with the tools that are available in EngageVR. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jana, and also Assistant Professor Richard Willow for your response. So we will move on to the second question by Tunggu Maisara. I would like to invite Dr. Charles to take this question. Can VR prepare teachers in field trip situations like a trip to an aquarium or a museum? How do we handle the students? Dr. Charles? Okay, thank you, Dr. Charles, for your response. Okay, so we'll move on to the final question, and I would like to invite Mr. Faisal to take this by Farah Saiful. Mr. Faisal?
Hello. So the question is this, at this point of advancement of VR, what are the dimensions are we looking into improving or be improved in context of bringing this into the classroom? There are several ways, basically, because like Engage VR is merely a platform per se. There's a lot of like other VR platforms, metaverse experiences out there that you can actually utilize. I think to answer to just to add on to the previous question about like doing field trips and whatnot, basically based on Engage VR, there are like 70 plus locations and whatnot. You can bring field trips, but there are other VR platforms out there like Outspace VR, if I'm not mistaken, or like I can't remember what the name of it at the top of my head. That you can actually visit 360 experiences of like live locations such as like the KLCC or like Bali or like the mountains or like the Brazil islands and whatnot. So there are other experiences that you can use to explore, to bring like multiple users virtually to share the same 360 experience as if like you're going in a field trip together. So that is basically already uh, is already there. It's in the market, just like finding the right solutions for you. So in this case, what are the dimensions? Basically, to improve of it, basically understanding like what are the differences between having virtual experiences and comparing that to remote like team sessions or like Zoom meetings and whatnot, even like physical meetups. The From what I see, at least, like not just in the education aspect, or is basically in all of work per se, that people would be more aware of the technology and people would be more understanding of like when to use which technology per se. There are certain things that obviously you still kind of like need that physical experience per se, if it is possible. If it is not, there are, depending on which type of softwares you need to kind of like find the right software for your own need. Let's say basically that there are virtual experiences for anatomy studies per se. So we have softwares like 3D Organon or like Holo Anatomy that has that multi-user experiences, but to more specifically understanding about understanding anatomy studies. So this for targeted for medical students. And there are certain experiences for architecture students or like for tourism. Do we have like a VR experience right here, which is like for the kayak VR? Basically, like it's a VR experience to experience using the kayak. That's not a multiplayer experience at this point, if I recall, but it gives you a feel of like how does kayaking feel, and I think that is being used as well for our tourism school, that is basically using that to teach their students on how to kind of like teach tourism in virtual reality per se, and then it's like having the students to be that in the virtual reality, and then how to guide them, how to guide their audience to per se. So there are various options actually. The one thing I think I forgot to mention about the Engage VR, apart from its cross-platform ability, that it has ability to record the session in virtual format. So technically, it won't be a video recording per se like this, but it is basically like you can go back to a session, load up the same map, and then replay a whole session in virtual reality. So as an educator, you can, let's say you just had a whole classroom and you have like many students to manage, but you probably won't be able to see what everybody is doing at any given point in time. But with the virtual recording, when you play back the virtual recording, it would simulate the whole class. Every avatar will load up, even though they're not there anymore. But you can do that at your own time and have all of the students see. You can see all of the students how they all behave during at which part of your class, and you can play back, you can pause, you can rewind, you can skip, you can move around in virtual reality to see like who does what at any given point in time. So that is very interesting actually in Engage VR, and you can do that specifically in Engage VR. So that's why we love about it, and that's like I feel like that is a very useful tool for study, to research back to, even like educators, you want to see how have you taught your previous session, and you can see back, or maybe this particular method is not suitable for half of my class, or maybe this bunch of class like it like this, or maybe like they were too focused on something else because of something I did earlier. So it's good to kind of like kind of like recheck back that particular session. So there are a few other things that you can pursue to kind of like improve on bringing into the classroom. But coming back to the question specifically, in context of bringing this into the classroom, educators need to kind of like be more explorative into understanding what are the other the platforms that are available, not just into EngageVR, but others as well. And then try to kind of like really understand the tools of it, and then try to find what is the best module you want to utilize virtual reality experiences for. There are certain experiences you can still use your remote sessions or whatnot, but there are certain experiences it is best to experience in virtual reality. And it's basically more experience session that you really want class activities, people remote, but you want people to have like presence experience with each other. So that you want to get people to move around together, and that like class activity that requires like avatar movements per se. So those experiences can be in virtual reality. I should be in virtual reality better than like remote sessions like Teams and whatnot. So I hope that answers your questions, Ms. Farah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Faisal, for the explanation. So I think I would like to thank everyone for your questions and also your all the responses given. I think what we can say is this project has really shown us the many possibilities of advancing teaching and learning. So in different contexts, in different directions, different ways. So I think we on behalf of the members of the project, we are also very excited to find out more. And I hope it's also applicable in one way or another in your own teaching and learning context. So thank you again to all the panelists, audience for your time here, and also special thanks to students who actually participated in the micro teaching sessions. Throughout all this whole time. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a very good day.
Thank you. Bye. All the panelists just wait for a while, just for a few minutes.
Nasib baik tak leave lagi.
What is that?
Luckily I haven't left that.
Oh, okay. Just a few minutes. Just
yeah.
quick.
Still being streamed.
Still being streamed. Yeah.
Still being streamed.
Okay.
Finished just in time, Dr. Mijana.
Yeah. Good. Time. No, actually exceeded a little bit. Supposed to end at 11:30. But good sharing session, because I think everyone shared different perspectives, you see. So that actually made the whole discussion richer. The students from Taylor's had different perspective. Students from Central Escola covered different areas. Associate Professor Lilo covered a different angle altogether.